It was nearly the end of the summer season in 2014. Thick dark clouds had been forming over the island for days. Thomas, Annie and Clarabel were worrying. "There's going to be a storm soon, a big one," said Thomas. "All this cloud and no rain, I don't like it. Trust me, Percy, it'll be pouring down before the end of the day. I can feel it in my frame." "Oh, Thomas," said Percy, "you get antsy every time it gets cloudy for a few days. Most of the time it comes to nothing. You're getting on my wit with all this talk of storms." Percy collected the rest of his trucks and went off towards the top station in a huff. When the signal dropped, Thomas set off for the junction. Edward was waiting in the platform when he arrived. "Hello, Edward. What are you doing out on the main line?" Thomas asked as he ran round to the water column. "James has been taken ill today. I'm covering for him and Douglas is covering my trains on the Sudbury branch. I'm glad I was brought off, though. When the storm hits, I'd hate to be running along the coast." "Finally," said Thomas, "someone agrees with me besides Annie and Clarabel. All the others think I'm being silly." "Oh no," said Edward, "there's going to be a storm. I've already heard a rumble of thunder while I was on the other side of the island." Neither of them were wrong. Around mid-afternoon it started to drizzle with rain, but soon it grew worse and worse. By the time of Thomas's last train there were rolls of thunder and flashes of lightning as the rain pelted down on him. As Thomas waited at the junction, he looked over at the harbour and saw the waves crashing against the quay. "Blimey," he said, "this is a bad one. I can't wait to be back home in my shed." It wasn't too long before Gordon came into the station with the express. The passengers rushed over the bridge and into Annie and Clarabel. "Good luck, Thomas," said Gordon. "I've already seen some places along the main line flooded. I'd get finished as soon as possible and get back to your shed." As soon as the guards blew their whistles, both engines set off as fast as the wet rails would let them. As they came into Dryall, they saw the porter rush out into the rain waving a red lamp. They came to a stop in the station and the porter ran into Thomas's cab. "Thank goodness you saw my lamp," he said. "What's up?" said the driver. "Toby was bringing the doctor up from the harbour, but he's broken down. The taxi would have taken him, but the road to Ffarquhar's been cut off already and Harold's been grounded on account of the wind. He needs to get to the top station. There's been a bad accident. We need you to wait here for him, please." It wasn't too long before the doctor arrived. He rushed into the train, waving at the guard as he shut the door. The guard blew his whistle and the train set off into the wind and darkness. "Oh," said Thomas, "this rain is horrible. I can hardly get any grip on the rails at all." Most of Thomas's branch line was uphill heading towards Ffarquhar, and in the heavy rain it became hard to climb. "Just keep at it, boy," said his driver. "We'll get through it." "Boy? Ha! I'm nearly 100 years old," said Thomas. "Oh, blast it!" Thomas's wheels slipped suddenly, but he managed to recover. They still had to stop at all of the regular stations along the way, but as soon as the doors were slammed shut, they set off again. "I do wish our lamp shone brighter," said Thomas. "I can't see anything more than a few yards ahead outside of the station limits." Torrey Wreck was the last station before the long uphill slog to Elsbridge. It was hard going and they weren't helped by a fallen tree. It wasn't actually on the line, but it was close enough to make the driver slow down to a crawl as they passed it, and Thomas had to build up his speed again as they went up the hill. "I'm not looking forward to the next bit," said Thomas. "Why's that?" asked the driver. "It's the section where Percy got flooded out years ago, isn't it? They had to use Clarabel's floorboards to get going again." "Yes," said Clarabel, "and I didn't like that at all." "We shouldn't have a problem though, Thomas. You're a lot bigger than Percy and we got a load of wood just in case while we were waiting for the doctor." They charged on towards the possible flood. "Right," said the driver. "We'll charge the flood if there is one yet. Shut the dampers as soon as we hit the water and we'll pile on the wood if we need to." The fireman stoked the fire until it was burning fiercely. Thomas barked loudly as he climbed the line and the driver tried to look ahead to see if the line was flooded. Thankfully there was a sheen on the water and they saw it coming. "Here it comes!" shouted Thomas. "Shut the dampers now!" called the driver. They hit the water with a splash and there was a loud whoosh as the water hit Thomas's ashpan. "Oh, that's horrible," he said as it started sloshing around his fire. "Quickly," said the driver, "the wood!" The driver and fireman chucked the wood in as quickly as they could, but it was no good. Thomas's pressure dropped and they came to a stop in the middle of the flood. They struggled to keep his fire burning at all. The fireman climbed down and went to see the guard. "We need you to go back to the station and get some help. The weather's messing with the radio signal, we can't get through." "Not bloomin' likely," said the guard. "I'm staying here in the dry-my compartment." "I can't go," said the fireman. "I've got to stay here and try and revive Thomas's fire. Hop to it or we'll get our axe out and—" All right, said the guard. "I'll go if it stops you tearing up the floorboards." The guard jumped down with a splash and plodded off back to the station. When he got there, he rang Control at the big station.
"Oh, I don't know," said Control. "Henry's off up at Grosvenor Gate. Gordon's been stabled already. James is ill." Hang on, Edward's still working. I'll ring the shed before they can drop his fire. Bear with me a moment.
The guard waited a few minutes and the telephone rang again.
Hello? You're lucky. I just called them in time. He'll be on his way as soon as he can.
The guard ran back and told Thomas's crew. They managed to coax some life back into the fire and reversed out of the flood while waiting for Thomas's pressure to come back. His safety valves were just whispering as they heard Edward's whistle and his lamps came into view. "A goods head code? What's that about then?" said the driver. Edward's driver came up to Thomas's cab. "Ahoy there," said Edward's driver. "We've got a truckload of broken wood for you. Come back and get some. We'll get you through the flood. You pull until Thomas's pressure gives out, then we'll push." The crews piled the wood into the cabs and they prepared for the challenge. When ready, they charged at the flood. As Thomas's pressure started to drop, he whistled. That was the signal for Edward to start pushing. Sparks flew from his chimney as he made the final push and they finally made it through. They stopped for a short while to build more steam pressure, then set off for Ffarquhar. Once there, Thomas headed for the station while Edward shunted his truck and van into the station's relief siding. The station master rode in Thomas's cab as he ran round the coaches. "Here, Charlie," he shouted from the cab as they stopped. "You'd better stop here the night. You'll never get past that flood now." "All right," said Edward's driver. "Toby's berth is free, isn't it? We'll stable in there." So they pulled out and ran into the yard, while Thomas shunted the coaches away and then he joined Edward in the shed. At last, home and dry. But his comfort was short-lived. The station master came running into the shed. "The barracks at the quarry has collapsed," he said. "Mavis is stuck on one of the extensions. We need Thomas to bring the workers back here. You'll have to bring them down in trucks, though. We can't risk Annie and Cloud getting stuck up there or damaged." "Oh," said Thomas, "but it's all right for me to get stuck up there or damaged." "They're made of wood," argued the station master. "Old wood at that. You're 50 or so tons of metal steam engine." It took a few minutes to get Thomas's fire going again while the crew fetched their waterproofs. Then they set off on their rescue mission. They were battered by the wind and rain as they struggled up the quarry extension. Thomas screeched to a stop as he came to the bridge. "Come on, Thomas, what are you doing?" the driver asked as he jiggled the regulator and brake lever trying to get him to move. "I don't want to. A flood's one thing, but that bridge gave way under Toby and he's much smaller than me." "Oh, give over," said the driver. "That was years ago. The bridge is made of steel now. Now shift!" Thomas grudgingly crossed the bridge and they were soon in the quarry. A worker poked his head out of the station shelter, saw Thomas and ran out to Thomas's cab. "There's a bunch of lads stuck up one of the extensions. I'll show you which one," he called as he climbed into the cab. Thomas collected a couple of trucks and they set off up the line to find the workers. Rain streamed down the walls of the quarry as they went along. They quickly found the workers who needed no telling to get into the trucks. When they got back to the main yard, the workers had climbed into another short line of trucks. Thomas had to take water before going back. Thankfully, the quarry still had a tower from when Toby worked there. The workers coupled the trucks while Thomas had his drink. Suddenly, one of the workers shouted, "Look out, the wall's giving way!" "Quickly, driver," shouted Thomas. "Set me backwards and jump!" Thomas surged back, knocking the trucks and workers out of the way just in time, but he was caught by the rocks and knocked off the track as they fell around him. When it was over, he lay partially buried on his side, hissing steam. "Ouch!" he cried. His driver and fireman ran to him and started taking the rocks off of him. The quarry workers scrambled over the rock fall and helped too. When free of the rocks, his crew checked him over. His front was badly twisted, his tanks and bunker battered. No one could come until morning. The Fat Controller was one of the first to arrive on the scene. Thankfully it had stopped raining by then. "Well, Thomas," he started, "this is a how-to-do. Well done for saving the workers. Everyone in Ffarquhar is singing your praises. We'll use jacks to get you upright, but we can't get you back on the rails until this rock slide is cleared away and a crane can get up here. Plans are already underway for your repairs." Thomas was brought back upright again, but the quarry workers didn't stop there. Not waiting for the crane, they used the jacks to raise him up and throw him over. Little by little, Thomas was levered over and back up onto the tracks. By then the rocks had been cleared away and Toby had been repaired. He came up the line to pull Thomas back to the yard. The Fat Controller was waiting and they arrived to a round of cheers. "Thomas," he said, "the works will have space for you in just a few days. You'll have to wait here until then, I'm afraid." "But sir," said Thomas, "who'll look after the branch line? Daisy's not here at the moment and Percy's too busy." "I'll do what I can, sir, I can manage," said Percy. "That's where one of the surprises I've planned comes in, Thomas. Your sister is coming to stay while you're away." "Sister?" said Thomas. "But all of the other E2s were—" "Wait a minute. Emma's coming?" "Who," asked Toby, "is Emma?" "She's my little sister," said Thomas. "We were pulling the same munitions train in the Great War before I came here. She was damaged too and sent to a railway in Norfolk. I didn't know that she was still running." "Well, she is," said the Fat Controller, "and she's coming here. Here's your other surprise, Thomas. For your centenary, I'm having you retrofitted back to a proper E2. "Really, sir?" said Thomas. "Thank you, sir." "Yes, well, it was my grandfather's decision to alter your design during the war to save metal, and it was my father's to change your shape even further, a decision I wouldn't have made myself. You know that your centenary is coming up, and I think it is only right that you celebrated it in your proper shape. It will take time, mind, but we started raising funds a while back, and work has already begun." "Thank you very much, sir. When will Emma get here, please?" "The day after tomorrow," said the Fat Controller. "You should get to see each other before you go to the works." The Fat Controller said goodbye and left, and Thomas eagerly awaited the arrival of his long-lost sister.